everyone, it's Carolyn here to share another message with the Light Keepers and myself, sharing with you some of the things that I've been talking about in my more recent energy updates of things that are happening now, things that you can do to help yourself. So what I decided is I'm just going to combine all of those pieces into one video. Now, it's not all inclusive, but it definitely talks to, in summary fashion, the things that are going on now in this new Aquarian age energy that we're beginning to notice and feel, most particularly in the last few months and this year in 2021. And what I'm going to also do is give you a sense of what you can do to assist yourself in each of these. So we'll see how many show up. I do have a list I'm going to follow, but again, this is to help summarize some of the things that are going on significantly right now, how they impact us, and what we can do to help ourselves. So I hope you find this useful today. I'm Carolyn. I'm a channel. I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I offer these channels and this information for your awakening and ascension journey support. So we're going to see today what the Light Keepers bring through in addition to some of the things that I'm going to share. I'll try to also share some of my personal experiences because I always feel it's a really good way for you to maybe relate to what's going on, because every one of these I'm experiencing and have felt, and I am no different than you. So needless to say, thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, I really appreciate you being here. I'd love for you to subscribe and share and like as well. It helps me continue to do more of these videos to reach more people going through awakening and ascension. Below in the description box, you're going to find a link that's going to take you to a free video on how to help create flow in your body for health and wellness during this ascension time. But more importantly, what it does is it sends you then to an email list that you'll be on, where once a week I send you a channeled message from the Light Keepers to support you along your weekly journey. So with that today, thank you so much to everybody who's here. And we're just going to get going. I don't have a channeled message to start this off. I'm just going to start talking, and we're going to see if they bring through anything additionally. One of the things that is coming up now even more, and it kind of depends on our personal habits as well, are fear thoughts. That foundation of things that happen to us or that are out in the world that bring fear, a natural fear, into our being. Our being is meant to live without fear. Now remember, a lot of this fear thought and fear feeling is, first of all, also egoic related, but also from our outside world. So much of it is churned up in the media, in social media, in all kinds of external sources that we see each day. Television, news channels, anything on the internet that whips you up into a frenzy. Now, we have a lot of tough stuff going on out there in the collective. And I don't know if you're like me, there was a time where I said, oh my God, if I'm not paying attention to this, then I'm a bad person, or I should be focused on this. Well, I realized very quickly that all that's doing, and there is kind of that guilt thing out there, as if you don't know what's going on, because I've had that happen before, where I've had people say to me, you don't watch the news, like I'm a bad person. And so that whole trap of maybe guilt of like, oh, I should know what's going on because, my friends, my neighbors, my family, they talk about the news all the time, and I should know too. And am I a bad person for being what some people might be calling self-centered or selfish? But they don't understand this journey. And so what's happened is so many people have gotten stuck in this loop of listening to all that, right? And then they take that energy in, and that's where they live from. So as we go through this journey, what we start to realize, and it's a very natural process of all of a sudden, you're just kind of not watching the news anymore. You're not maybe on the internet as much. You're not taking in all of that vibration and that all of that information that then shifts your vibration to that fear energy. So what I've always said is, sure, stick your toe in, but then get out. Don't go swim in it. You can see what's going on, but again, you're going to know too. And the further you go in this journey, the more you know. And we all do it when we get stuck into something too deep and you start feeling it and you start reading more about it and you're like, oh my gosh. And then suddenly I pull myself out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling vibrationally different. And when you're in this ascension awakening journey, and I'm talking consciously aware, okay, because we've talked about those stages. Consciously conscious, you're aware you're going through the awakening journey. You also are aware of your vibration. You start becoming very aware of the shifts and changes daily in vibration, and that what you focus on matters. All right? So, a tip for you here is because it's almost unavoidable at times, the things that show up in our awareness that aren't vibrationally, okay, they just said healthy for us, exactly. Because it's that mirage concept, okay? It really kind of is that mirage concept that we talked about in the last video for the July energy update. It's there for you, right? It's a mirage. What are you going to do with it, right? Are you going to take it all in and let it affect your vibration? You're going to keep reading more about it and researching and understanding it, and then tightening yourself up so you can't allow those beautiful ascension energies in. So it's not about ignoring things. It's about what do you choose to take in totality. Because here's the thing. Yeah, some of us are probably meant to go work it, right? And we know that because we're probably working in that field. But others of us, we can't do anything about the thing. The thing that has happened has occurred. And as we dive deeply into it, we get lost in it. We can only offer ourselves the beautiful energy of staying constant, because guess what? Then it assists what's going on out there that actually brings us that fear. I hope that makes sense. As you work on yourself and you work away from those fear energies and fear thoughts that are so prevalent in the outside world, whether it be politics, religion, war, your neighbor's fighting, I don't know, whatever it is. That changes your vibration, which then doesn't allow you to be the light of the world. That's the key. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about fear. We could talk about this for the entire video, and I probably have in the past. But, so those are fear thoughts. So, a couple things, just reviewing. Limit your media exposure. We've talked about that. Meditate. Get your self-care, calming practices. Realize when you've gotten in too deep, okay? Get out in nature. Go get out in nature. The biggest thing for me is I spend a lot of time in my house. And what I realize is as I start to feel the fear and the worry and the concern, which some of it comes up from clearing, and these are all interrelated, okay? So one can affect the other that I'm going to talk about. When we have things come up from our past, whether it's this incarnation or the last incarnation or 20 incarnations before, coming up to feel this fear again and process it, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, I found for me, I have got to get outside. It changes my whole perspective. It gives me, instead of this myopic view of, oh my God, when we get tight and we get so fearful and we're so, I'll just say, internalized in our egoic mind about the fear thing, particularly if it's very personal, nature will take that away. It's just like, oh, they just said it's like a cleansing. Yeah, okay, just so they said it just, okay, the energetics of nature sweep over you. Oh, and they said help you have a broader perspective. Yeah, it helps you come out of that muck. All right, so we just talked about fear thoughts. They're prevalent now, but it's what you choose to focus on and how you handle what comes up. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, the next thing that's happening in these new energies that we're in summer, and that we're going to be moving forward with, is there's a ton of clearing, and it's fast. So basically a lot of shift and a lot of change fast. However, what's kind of interesting is what I've realized is, if I was looking at my life on the outside and looking at me, I would say, well, nothing's really changed. Ooh, but you've changed inside so much, and the way you feel and the way you think and the way you process and intuitive gifts, and it just goes on, processing past lives, feeling the energies, all of this. Like we said, it's an inside job. So much of it, standing on the outside, you might think, well, her life's not changed any, but you're changing from the inside out. And then guess what? Your life shifts and changes to what you want it to be. And so does the new earth. So again, this is a clearing that is happening very quickly. Oftentimes and let me just tell you what I mean by clearing. We have things from our experience in this incarnation, inner child work, things that were traumatic in our life up to this point, whether it be relationships, family, it doesn't matter, whatever it was. And if we stuffed it down and it affected us, it's going to come up. It's going to likely come up for clearing. You may not even know what it is. And this is why I talk about past lives, because past lives, a prevalent thing in this ascension and awakening journey now is that you're clearing past lives that you don't even know about. So it's happening very fast. But what I want you to know, and I've had this happen with myself, and I know it from clients, so I've got enough patterned information to understand that it's happening faster and you're clearing faster. So literally within a day or two, your traumatic emotional feeling of whatever's going on when you put your foot on the floor in the morning, it's going to come up, and it can be really tough to deal with. Especially, I'll just have to say, if you kind of don't know where it's coming from, but that's going to be the vast majority of us. We're not going to know necessarily where it's coming from. So we've got to lean into that. But it's going to come and go fast, all right? But you can't ignore it. For instance, if you get up in the morning and you're just so incredibly emotional and you feel this and you're just want to be crawled up in a ball, honestly, it's better that you are, that you go do that thing you feel you need. And yes, I know we have our 3D world we have to live in with respect to going to work. And again, I always say, if you can take a day off, take a day off. But this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I will say one thing too is what you don't want to do is ignore these feelings. But what can happen is we can feel this in the morning, and if we have a 3D job or a job we have to go to, we can quickly kind of move into that and ignore all of what's showing up. What you don't want to do is ignore it. What I would say to you, don't push it back down. I know you have to maneuver through your 3D day, your work day, your family, all of that. Try to then find space later to sit and understand what just happened to me. Why did I feel that way? Don't just not feel it. Now, what I will say to you is those of us who, and because this is happening to everybody, it's just, we're consciously conscious. We're aware of this happening, but we're not always aware of our past lives and the things that we're actually processing, the one-to-one correspondence. That's why, as I've said before, people like me offer the kinds of services I offer to help you understand the traumas and the dramatic stuff you're going through your awakening journey so you can process it more, I'll just say, kind of mentally effectively or emotionally effectively, because I have found that when mind, body, and soul come together to understand something that we're clearing, clearing is being able to get this out of our cellular memory so we're not housing it and carrying it forward, because that's what ascension is about, is releasing all of this, becoming lighter so that we can then move forward in the ascension process. So that said, when mind, body, and soul come together, when the body understands it, which it always does because it carries all our memories in cellular memory, our body is super smart and is a consciousness in and of itself. We also have the higher self, which knows everything. It is wise and wonderful and knows everything. But our human mind so often blocks all that up. But when the human mind comes along and understands from where this comes from, so much clicks into place. And I've seen it with many people where all of a sudden this gateway opens up. It's like, oh my gosh, mind, body, and soul, what they always call the Holy Trinity, right? In the work that I do, being able to then open up this gateway of energy to move forward and clear this information, clear this. Now, you're going to eventually clear this too, but we don't want to suppress this. We don't want to suppress any of the feelings, any of the emotions, even though there are some of the most difficult feelings. I am not kidding you. Processing past lives, I don't think I've ever felt more trauma. And the thing is, I know mine, and I know I've mentioned this before, but when you start to feel these super heavy emotions, you don't understand where they're coming from, or somebody triggers you, which can often be the case, for a cellular memory to come up, lean into it. Don't push it away, because it's going to come back faster in the future. But know that these things are clearing faster. I literally am clearing in a day or two. I am clearing in a day or two. I have clients, the same thing's happening to them. These very difficult emotions are coming up, and we don't have a clue necessarily where they're coming from. And all of a sudden, in the next day or two, you're feeling, okay, they just said, feeling a lighter grace. Exactly. Because remember, we're unburdening ourselves. That's exactly what is happening. To allow that new frequency to show up, where we're not carrying our fears and our worries and our concerns and all this trauma we've stuffed down over the eons of lives that we've had. So with respect to the clearing faster and the shift and change happening faster, the clearing out of the cellular memory from our past lives and this current life, what you want to do is check in with how you feel each day. Literally, I do this. When my foot steps on the floor in the morning, I start to know, okay, this is how it's going to be today. And like this morning, oh my gosh, I was like, okay, I have Friday available. I'm going to do a video. This is the video I'm going to do. And all of a sudden, I just started feeling very, I'll just say, staticky energy in me and nervous energy. And that is so not like me. And I thought, oh, this is how this day is going to be. But what I need to do is recognize it. Okay, don't push it away. Recognize it. And then find the way to move through your day, accepting that this is part of your day for a period of time and it's happening for a reason. And again, we've got a ton of ascension energies coming in and solar flares, so it could be something like that. You could be getting an upgrade. So you don't have to know what the thing is, that correspondence to what's happening. Just know it's happening and then act accordingly is what they're saying. Oh, or they said react accordingly in the sense of, okay, see, this goes back to the first one. Acceptance and no fear response. All right? Okay, they just said if you start stepping into fear with how you're feeling, oh, they said this is a time for a deep breath. So you have to catch yourself, all right? Because, okay, they just said you can shift and change your response to what is occurring to you in your emotional being, in your emotional self. It's just taking the time to do it. So that makes so much sense. I mean, when we feel the thing, it's accepting that it's actually happening, and it's happening for a reason, and it's happening for good. And it's very most likely with what's happening now, it's the clearing out, because this is prevalent. I mean, everybody's just clearing out and making different decisions, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So again, lots of clearing, lots of fast change. Also, lastly, lean into the emotion with this one and do your self-care. And we talked all day long about what self-care is, and so I'm not going to go through that again, all the different steps. But, you know, we kind of commonsensically know what self-care is. We just aren't great at it until we kind of go through the awakening, and we're forced to do self-care. However, what I will say is, I will continually say this, is meditation is key. They talk about it being, as we've said before, the foundation of everything moving forward. It solves so many problems. It helps tamp down your emotions. It helps you focus on the now moment. We've gone on and on about what meditation does. And I would say to you all, if that's the one thing you're not doing, start. And again, we could talk all day long about meditation, but that is very much a way to assist you in the entirety of what is happening now in these new Aquarian age energies that are showing up, where things are ramping up faster and faster and changing faster and faster, and we're changing faster and faster. Meditation will help assist you to be calm through this process for the most part. Okay, we are also, number 3, much more energetically sensitive. This has shown up for me in spades, and there are a few things that are occurring. So because we're opening up more, we're more available to take in the higher lights, the higher energies, the ascension energies. We just keep opening up more and more to allow more light in. But what that also means is you're more sensitive to all the things around you. Some people are more sensitive to electronics. Some people are more sensitive to being around crowds of people. Some people are more sensitive to others' energies influencing their own energetic field and then taking some of that energy and using it for themselves. It's like trading energy. I have that happen. I don't want to say a real issue, but I guess, yeah, it's kind of a real issue. I'm learning how to maneuver through it, where the light is then that we exude when in crowds, someone who's suffering sees the light, comes, takes your light, which in essence feels like you've taken over, or for my purpose, is I've taken on some of their characteristics, their anxiety. I actually had a situation where, and I don't know if I told you guys this, where I woke up with suicidal thoughts. And I remember thinking, and this was after being in a crowd, after having drinks, and I won't go down the whole rabbit hole on this, but the point is I also can't drink anymore, but I woke up with super anxiety. I was going to go through a whole nother energetic experience that I've had that was not conducive to being able to like stay in my body, and it was like that overlay happening. But the point in this is what I realized is I had taken on an energy that wasn't mine, because I remember thinking from the outside in going, oh, this must be what it's like for someone to feel like they're suicidal. And I suddenly was like, this is 2 a.m. I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, this isn't me. I have had energy from the evening out come to me, because I can tap into those things, so I do know my own circumstances, and I knew it was their anxiety. So they took some of my light to get them through, and I took on their stuff. Well, first of all, the alcohol opened me up to that. Secondarily, they saw my light. So this is going to happen to you potentially, okay? So and I'm a terrible one at getting up and shielding myself and putting boundaries up, and I forget to sage, and that's one of my weaknesses, okay? And I know it. Clearing, I used to do a ton of Epsom salt baths, but it's summer, I don't do that now so much. I do use my pendulum for clearing, that helps immensely. But my point in this is energetic sensitivity can cause so many things to start happening to you. And that's why we want to be in tune with ourselves, so we understand how we react to things. And it's a practice process, let me tell you. But what we want to make sure of is we center in ourselves and we don't feel fear around this. Because many of you who are empathic and have been forever, you kind of get this idea, but it becomes more extreme as we're opening up to our higher ascension energies, and we're awakening even honestly at a faster pace. So a lot of new higher frequency energies coming into the planet. We have to be aware that when we're around others, we're much more energetically sensitive to them as well. So shielding up, doing whatever your process is, you can make that up. It's about your intent. Bring your angels in, bring your guides in, or just swoop your arms around, have the thought process in that, no, I'm shielded up for today, and then come home and do your clearing practices. Okay, energetically sensitive, do your energy clearing, do Reiki. I firmly believe that we should all be doing a regular energy clearing practice, whether you do it yourself or you have somebody else do it for you. Super important. We already talked about being aware of sensitivity to crowds and sometimes even family members. So you know who triggers you, right? But you also know that maybe their energy, there's things you need to do there. So it really becomes intricate when you're living with family members that affect you dramatically. Some of us have situations where we have to be around a lot of people during the day. But you'll find your practice. It's okay, because you can make this work for whatever situation you're in. And then remember, as this energetic sensitivity grows, this is all good. It's all good that you are. But we have to balance that out with what shows up in our space and who wants our energy, for that matter. Take time for yourself. We have to be able to, okay, they just said reboot. It's so true. And even those of us awakening, we're still not doing enough of that. I struggle with that every day, that I have to accomplish and achieve, because I'm very action oriented. But I've done a really good job of taking time for myself. I now have a habit where I do this in the morning. I don't start my day until mid-morning. Now, I'm not saying you all have that opportunity to do that, but with I didn't for the entirety of my career before I went through my awakening. I didn't have time to myself in the morning. It was, I'd start actual work in the office at 7:30, and then I'd be working through the night forever. So my point in this is we have to find time for ourselves now that we're going through awakening. Put it in the morning, put it in the night. Tell your family members, this is my time. This is what I'm going to go do. Or even, I'm going for a weekend trip on my own. I'm going to go, just down the road a piece, and I'm going to go get a hotel room in a nice little B&B. Seriously, it's that important, all right? We have to take time for ourselves, because we're becoming much more energetically sensitive. This is all good. It's all good. It's just that as a human with a body and emotions, we have to understand that we're going to be impacted. And then we have to be able to have practices that support us being able to move forward, not just letting it happen to us. And that's why I'm offering all this to you today. All right, going to go to another one. What's happening right now is ego busting. We talked a little bit about this in the past. And when I say ego busting, we're not going to get rid of the ego, all right? But it's going to get to the point where the ego, as in the visualization I've given you guys to use the car as the metaphor. Who's driving the car today? Who's the passenger today? Who's in the passenger seat in the front? Who's in the back seat? Where you want the ego is in the back seat in every situation, looking out the window at the beautiful scenery and saying, oh, Did you see that? You just might want to see that. So beautiful. That's not what the ego normally does, right? So this is a whole transition to where the ego resides in us. And so I always use kind of like two hands to show the process of how we end up in this journey, or the typical individual does. So typically here in the average human journey, ego's way up here driving the entirety of what we do. Higher self is doing this thing, is guiding, still guiding, but it's the reaction that we have to the stuff that's happening that the higher self is making sure you experience. But the ego is the reactionary part of that, right? And that whole thinking mind that whips you up in a frenzy. And so as we start going through this awakening process, the ego, it's kind of like this, boom, 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 the little bit of fight there, that staticness, right? But then higher self, leading the day and how you feel and how you think, higher self. And then ego takes a back seat, looking at the scenery. Guess who's driving the car? Higher self. So we always have our higher self. It's just who's driving the car, right? In every scenario. And every scenario is different. And that's why this visualization of who's driving the car, and you can really go to town with this, is a really good one to do, particularly with a situation you've had happen and you're like really uncomfortable with it, not feeling good about how that all went down and how you may have reacted to the situation, okay? So again, we are ego busting right now. These energies are coming in to just, honestly, I've had one major situation where, I'm not kidding you, almost the next day when I had that energetic, weird anxiety attack thing I've told you about that took me out of my body, and I ended up at the emergency room, which probably didn't need to happen, but I did. Anyway, needless to say, what happened then was those energies came in, and a lot of them are for this purpose now. The putting the ego in its place, my ego went, I kind of feel like I was here, like higher self, ego, and all of a sudden, ego just, it's like being an observer. It's just like the ego became the observer to what was going on. And the higher self was really guiding the way. And as this starts to happen, our ego is what puts us into fear, into anger, into sadness, like those extreme emotions, attachments, all that stuff. Codependency, you name it, right? That's the ego. But as the higher self starts leading the way and the ego busting starts happening, the higher self, you have greater calm because the higher self just allows flow. And all these self-care practices that we've talked about and all the things that we're talking about here allow the higher self to lead the way. So it's how the human comes along for that journey and recognizes what the ego's doing. And then the energy that supports that's coming in from the planet is supporting the ascension process. As this starts happening, the higher self starts guiding you in a calm flow, in an understanding that you can be the observer to things happening, and you start taking a further step back to all the difficulties that are happening, all the responses that the ego never used to do. And you still see it now. You still see it in yourself. We have certain areas of our journey where, we may think we're A+ in some categories, and then we're like a D- in others, right? So we get triggered, and the ego's going to show up when we get triggered. So this is the time to be very aware of when that's happening and to be able to kind of study it and see where the ego sits in the car and where's the higher self. So another thing that is happening dramatically is, as I talked about, higher self leading the way. But what does that mean? So what we're moving into now is heart space decision making from our feelings versus our thinking. Okay, the thinking mind, and you can feel the difference. I caught myself the other day. I was just not in the present moment, where you're not in the present moment and all you're doing is thinking about things. And I don't even mean angsting about stuff. I just mean you're in your head constantly. Versus coming from your heart-centered space, which really focuses on the now moment, the beauty of the moment, the thing that you're doing, the feeling side of you to help you make decisions, the intuitive side of you. That's the higher self side of you. Not that thinking mind that whips us up in a frenzy and thinks about 10,000 things that could potentially happen if you chose this, that, and the other thing, right? We are coming from a heart-centered way of making decisions. So what we want to always do is check in with ourselves, particularly if you have a difficult decision to make. We make thousands of decisions every week, right? Check in with yourself before you make the decision. Ask your heart, what do you feel? What do you feel? What do you feel with respect to this? Because I'll bet you on the difficult decisions, you whipped yourself in a super frenzy and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. And we still do that now, even though we're going through awakening. We're not pros at this. We're learning as we go, right? So we still have areas where it's like, whoa, what just happened there? That's not normally me. I thought I was a pro at this ascension and awakening process. No, you're not. Because you're going to always have something that's going to come in and test you. And we keep getting better and better at it. So a good cross-check to this, when you've whipped yourself up into a frenzy or you have a huge decision to make, step back. Again, this is tied to these other things. Go do some self-care, do some meditation, but then take those deep breaths. Feel into your heart space. What do you feel? What do you really know? And some of us, we're just going to feel it right in our heart, because it is centered in your heart. You can tell the difference, and there's no way for me to put this into human words. You can feel it when you're in your heart, the feeling side of you making a decision versus the head space part. You're also very present when you're making it from the heart space. You're present. You're not out in la la land, and then when you come back wondering, oh God, where was I don't even know where I am. And you know how you kind of lose yourself? That's the mind space. That's that mind space of whipping ourselves up into a frenzy. So coming back into this soft-hearted part, take the time to go, how do I feel? How do I feel? Now understand, depending on what's going on, the ego mind may pop it back in for a moment. But what you want to do is you want to take the decision that the heart has made. We're going to just flow into this as we move forward in the ascension journey. We're going to continue to move forward. It's going to be easier and easier to flow into heart-centered decision making, where inspiration, where passion, where love, all of that resides for you to be able to make your decisions, the now moment decision making. So enough said about that. We're ego busting right now. Just remember, that doesn't mean the ego's going away. It just means it takes its rightful place in the back seat of the car, being the passenger, looking at the beautiful landscape and pointing it out to you. So I think we're going to cover one more. This is number 6. I think you all know this, but we have right now going on a ton of time confusion. Now, there's some really interesting things that I have learned about this lately through the channels that I do. And I'm just going to explain this. Time confusion for me basically means I honestly don't know anymore what day it is. I forget completely what I've talked about to somebody the day before, unless I've written it down or they remind me. I also have a situation going on every day where, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, but suddenly I'm like, it's 5 in the afternoon. What happened? How did that happen? I mean, yes, I went through my day. I saw my clients. I did a video, whatever. But then I don't know. The time just evaporated. So it's kind of like it goes fast and then it'll go slow. But it's just like all conglomerated together, if that makes sense. And I'm probably not using great terminology for you, but I think you'll be able to put it into your own terms. It's just like a big mishmash of time. Well, as we know, there's really no time. So what's starting to happen... Okay, they keep talking a lot about 0 point, but... Okay, they just said the nothingness of time. Okay, we're going to get into some trippy area here, and that's not what this channel is about. But with that comes something very interesting that I've noticed. We are, and this gets into past lives, like I said, these are all interconnected. This gets into past lives where what we're doing is, remember, the oneness of who we are is everything we've ever been or are being at present time, all right? There's that argument of everything's happening all at once because there's no time. And so what I have found happening to myself in spades is my past lives I am integrating into who I am. Whether we know it or not, and the visual they've shown me is the wholeness of who we are is who we have ever been. Oh, and they said, and will be. They just said that just now. So it's already there for us to center into. But right now, when we start becoming consciously aware of our past lives that are really affecting us today and that we're here to clear, because I'm telling you right now, the vast majority of what's going on with what we're working on has to do with the past life. So once, and again, you don't have to know this, but it certainly helps. But especially getting through major circumstances in your journey. So what I have found is happening is we're integrating our conscious past lives into the oneness of who we are to understand, oh, Oh, she's an aspect of me. Oh, I get it why she is. Okay. And then what starts to happen is, it's hard to explain this, but it's folding into who you are and the acceptance that you are more than just who you are, but your past lives are coming in to join you in a much more conscious way. Now, when I say in a much more conscious way, again, you may not know this is happening, but you're okay. They just said, tell them they're becoming the fullness of who they are and have always been. It's not just this incarnation. You are more than you see in the mirror. Understand that you have lived eons of lives. They are all within you and forevermore. They are integrating more fully into your being as you are consciously aware that you are going through an awakening journey. Should you never understand even one of your past lives as to who you are and have been and will be, you will still integrate them in the fullness. The understanding of your past lives assists you in being able to integrate more fully, understand the fullness of your journey, the completeness of who you are, that you are all and forevermore. You are who you see in the mirror, but a much more full representation of the being of you in this great time of humankind's ascension. You are all and forevermore. You are within and without. You are each other in fullness and glory of the oneness that has been brought to be forevermore and will be now and forevermore for all of eternity. The great oneness of within and without. Okay, I didn't expect that. Oh, I did not expect that. Okay, wow, I'm going to have to listen to that again. I guess I will when I'm editing this. So I think we're going to stop there. But to summarize that last part, wow, that took me really out of my body. There's this time confusion happening, but it's for a purpose, because what we're doing, all of this is breaking down, and I'll just say it like this. Okay, they just said matrix. Okay, I don't usually go this direction, but okay, matrix, framework, whatever you want to call it, of what we've been, they just said encased in, entrapped in for eons, and that's what we're coming out of it. And in coming out of it, all this is happening. All right, this is what is happening now. And so this collapse of time and the integration of the fullness of who we are is part of this process. So don't get hung up about, you're really having problems staying in tune day to day with time, with how to get things done, how to make time work in your favor as it shifts and changes. It'll work out for you. Somehow it manages to work out. Now, a lot of you, so some of you may be feeling some of these things, some of you may be feeling all of these things. There may be some of you that don't resonate with any of this, but what I'm here to tell you is you're going to. You're going to feel all of these things. And they do this. All of these work together and they integrate together. And all of these things are happening now, whether we're on this journey or not, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And as we go through the awakening journey, we become very aware of what's happening to us on a daily basis. I so hope this has helped you understand the things that are going on right now in this new age of Aquarius Ascension energies that are happening to us, because it's moving fast and furious, and we are being bombarded by a lot of things. And I hope these 6 items have helped you kind of put a framework together for yourself, and then being able to understand some of the things you can do. Because once we have, again, I go back to the mind understanding, the mind goes, oh yeah, well, our soul knows, our body knows, but now we have mind, body, and soul all connecting in. And then you can start creating your own little recipe for how you manage through these things. It doesn't mean it's going to be super easy. Just because you now understand this, you're still going to feel it, but you're going to be consciously aware. And there's something about the understanding behind what's going on that is very comforting. So with that today, I thank you so much for joining me. I remind you of my services, distance energy healing, channeling, and spiritual awakening mentoring. All of these are designed to help you forward in your spiritual awakening, ascension journey, or just your life journey if you happen upon me and you don't even know what spiritual awakening is. I assist you moving forward by bringing in channeled information very personal to you. I also bring in past lives that help you understand what is going on in your current journey, because we are powerfully working on past lives in our day-to-day, in our relationships, in all the experiences we've had. We help identify some of those things that are going on now to assist you forward, opening a gateway of energy up for you to journey forward in your ascension and awakening. And then lastly, Celeste and I offer a full-on soul journey channeling session of 50 minutes, which I think you will just love. People have really responded well to that. That is available for you too. So I look forward to working with you. I thank you so much for joining me on these videos, and I will see you in the next one.